Hi, dear friends, welcome to VCE Academy. A tiger in the house, a short summary. In the Terai jungle near the Hera, grandfather discovered a small tiger cub under the roots of banyan tree. Grandfather very happily took the tiger cub to the home, and here grandmother was very happy to receive the new member to the home, and she named as Timothy. Our cook Mahmoud feed the milk to Timothy, but Timothy was growing very fast. It proved to be very rich for him. So he was put on a diet of raw mutton and cod liver oil. Later, for a more tempting diet of pigeons and rabbits. Timothy had two wonderful companions. Companions means friends. One was Toto, a naughty monkey, was bold enough to pull the tiger by its tail and climb up the curtains if Timothy becomes angry or lost his temper. Another was a mongrel small puppy. At first, Timothy used to be afraid of the puppy. Later, he allowed the puppy and became friends, and he allowed him to crawl on his back and rest the puppy at his back there. One of the Timothy's favorite amusements was to stalk anyone who would play with him. And so, when I came to live with grandfather, I became one of the tiger's favorite. With a crafty look in his glittering eyes and his body crouching, he would creep closer and closer to me, suddenly making a dash for my feet, rolling over on his back and kicking with delight and pretending to bite my ankles. He was by this time a full size grown retriever, and when I took him out for walks, people on the road would give us a wide berth. When he pulled hard on his chain, I had difficulty in keeping up with him. His favorite place in the house was the drawing room, and he would make himself more comfortable on the long sofa, reclining there with great dignity and snarling at anybody who tried to get him off. Timothy had very clean habits and would scrub his face with his paws, exactly like a cat. He slept at night in the cook's quarters, and he always delighted at being let him out in the morning. One of these days, declared grandmother in her prophetic manner, we are going to find Timothy who is sitting on Mahmoud's bed, and no sign of cook except his clothes and the shoes. Of course, it never came to that, but when Timothy was about 6 months old, a change came over him. He grew less friendly and steadily. When out for a walk with me, he would try to steal away to stalk a cat or someone's pet Pekingese. Sometimes at night we would hear frenzied cackling from the pottery house, and in the morning there would be feathers lying all over the veranda. Timothy had to be chained up more often, and finally, when he began to stalk at Mahmoud about the house with that looked like a villainous intent, grandfather decided it was time to transfer him to a zoo. The nearest zoo was at Lucknow, 200 miles away, reserving a first class train compartment for himself and Timothy. No one would share a compartment with them. Grandfather took him to Lucknow, where the zoo authorities were only glad to receive a tiger, a gift, a About 6 months later, when my grandparents were visiting relatives in Lucknow, grandfather took the opportunity of calling at the zoo to see how Timothy was getting on. I was not there to accompany him, but I heard all about it when he returned to Dehra. Arriving at the zoo, grandfather made straight for a particular cage in which Timothy had been interned. The tiger was there, crouched in a corner, full grown and with a magnificent striped coat. A tiger approached to the bars and allowed grandfather to put both the hands around his head. Grandfather stroked the tiger's forehead and tickled his ear, and whenever he growled, smacked him across the mouth, which was the old way of keeping him quiet. He licked grandfather's hands and only sprang away when a leopard in the next cage snarled at him. Grandfather shooed the leopard away, and tiger returned to lick his hand, but every now and then the leopard would rush at the bars and the tiger would slink back to his corner. A number of people gathered and to watch the reunion. Then a keeper pushed his way through a crowd and asked the grandfather, "What are you doing?" "I am talking to Timothy," said grandfather. "Weren't you here when I gave him to the zoo 6 months ago?" "I haven't been here very long," said the surprised keeper. "Please continue our conversation." "But I have never been able to touch him myself. He is always very bad temper." "So, grandfather will say, why don't you put him to somewhere else?" suggested grandfather. "That leopard keeps frightening him. I will go and I will see the superintendent about it." Grandfather went in search of superintendent of the zoo but found that he had gone home early, and after wandering about the zoo for a little while he returned to Timothy's cage to say goodbye. It was being to get dark. He had been stroking and slapping Timothy about for 5 minutes when he found another keeper observing him with some alarm. Grandfather recognized him as a keeper who has been there when Timothy had first come to the zoo. "You remember me?" said grandfather. "Now why don't you transfer Timothy to the another cage away from this stupid leopard?" But sir, stammered the keeper, "it's not your tiger." I know, said grandfather testily. "I realize he is no longer mine, but you might at least take a suggestion or two of me." "I remember your tiger very well, sir," said the keeper. "He died 2 months ago." "Died?" exclaimed grandfather. "Yes, sir, of pneumonia. This tiger was trapped in the hills only the last month, and he is very dangerous." Grandfather could think of nothing to say. The tiger was still licking his arm with increasing relish. Grandfather took what seemed to him an age to withdraw his hand from the cage. With his face near to the tiger's, he mumbled, "Good night, Timothy," and giving a keeper a scornful look, walked briskly out of the zoo. This completes the summary of A Tiger in the House.